Dear children, welcome back to the online session of Sri Kogulam Public School, Vatagara. I hope all of you are fine. Okay. Good morning to everyone. Our dreams that does not become reality through magic. It takes sweat, hard work and determination. So, my dear children, we have to do the hard work and to attain our dream. Okay. But then, today's session, I am going to start a new lesson from history. That is, Tribals, Dikus and the vision of a golden age. Clear? But tribals, who were the tribals that you studied in the lower classes? Okay, who were tribals? The forest people or the people living in the forest areas and hilly areas. Okay, they were known as the tribals. And who were Dikus? Dikus means outsiders. Here, outsiders means moneylenders, landlords and the British. And what were the troubles faced by the tribals under these Dikus? That we wanted to discuss today's class. Okay, then first of all, we want to discuss about one of the greatest leader of the tribal community. That was Birsa Munda. Okay, we can discuss about that. Different tribal communities are living in different parts of the forest. Okay, example, Banjaras, then Khans, Gonds, Muntas, like that various forest communities living in the different parts of the forest. Okay, here Birsa Munda, he belonged to the Munda community. Listen, of Chota Nagpur in Jharkhand. Birsa Munda belonged to the Munda community. Listen, this Munda community mainly lived in Chota Nagpur region of Jharkhand. Clear? Then people, they believed that he had the supernatural powers. He had some extra supernatural powers and he had the power to cure all diseases and to multiply the grain. They believed like that. And he himself declared that he was the representatives of the God, and then the God appointed him to save the people or to save the tribals from the trouble. His followers, he had many followers, they believed that he was a god and he had to come to solve the problems of these tribal communities. And his followers, they belonged to the other communities also, not only from the Munda communities. He got the followers from other communities like Sandals and Orons. That were the Sandals and Orons, they were the other forest communities, and they were unhappy under the British rule. And their traditional life that seemed to be disappearing. Their life entirely depending upon the forest. Whatever they needed, they collected from the forest. But then under the colonial rule or under the British government, they faced a lot of trouble. They were not allowed to collect the goods from the forest. So that affected the life of the tribals or the forest community. You see the picture of Birsa Munda. He belonged to the Munda community of Chota Nagpur region in Jharkhand. Listen, and then people believed that he had certain supernatural powers to increase or to multiply the grains and to cure the diseases of the people. And he also claimed that he had the supernatural powers. Please look at this picture and the chart. Then see the map. Listen, the different forest community living in the different states of India. Okay, Mundas community, Chota Nagpur region of Jharkhand. Okay, and the Sandals and Orons. Okay, please see that map. The same map is there in your textbook. Go through that map. Now, we can discuss what were the customs of this tribal community. Listen, and then these tribals, they had their own rituals and customs, and that were different from the Brahmins. We know that under the Brahmins, they followed the caste system. But among this tribal community, there was no such like a caste division. People belonged to the same tribe. They shared the common ties of kinship, or they had a close relationship. But there were certain social and economic differences within the tribe. There was no caste division, but among them there were certain social and economic divisions. Now we can look at that. How did the tribal groups live? How did they earn their livelihood? That we can look at now. Please listen. By 19th century, the tribals, they were involved in a variety of activities. Mainly, they did the jhum cultivation, and some others, they were hunters and gatherers, and some others, they were herded the animals, and others, they settled permanent life. Listen, like this they earned the livelihood. Once again, some of them were jhum cultivators, and some others, they were hunters and gatherers, and others were herded the animals, and others, they did the permanent cultivation. Listen, did they stayed in a permanent place and did the cultivation. First we can discuss who were jhum cultivators. How did they cultivate the crops? That we can discuss first of all. Please see the picture. Then you can see the picture of the jhum cultivators here. Okay, who were jhum cultivators? That also you studied in the lower classes. Listen, then this was done, this jhum cultivation that was done mainly in small plots of land. Under this cultivation, what did the tribals do? They cut the top of the trees, listen, and let the sunlight to reach the earth. Clear? Then after that, they burn the remains of the plants and the ashes mixed with the soil. These ashes that contains the potash, and to increase the fertility of the soil, they mixed the ashes with the soil. Then they started the cultivation. Instead of sowing the seeds, they spread the seeds. They didn't sow the seeds. Instead of that, they spread or scattered the seeds there. Okay, and did the cultivation. And this first areas that they did the cultivation for 2-3 years only. After that, they left these areas for many years and let these areas to grow the trees, and again after 18 or 17 years they again came back and did the cultivation there. They used the axe to cut the trees and the hoe to prepare the soil. Clear? Then a field that had been cultivated once was left fallow for several years. I told you that one. After the cultivation, they left this land area fallow without doing any cultivation for several years. And then after several years, again came back and did the cultivation. Jhum cultivators, they were also known as the shifting cultivators. Listen, why shifted the cultivation from one region to another region. And these jhum cultivators or shifting cultivators mainly lived in the hilly and forest areas of the northeast and central India. And their life depended on free movement within forest and growing the crops. See the main points. Listen, then the jhum cultivators, they used the forest areas for cultivation. Then these communities or the tribals, they were mainly lived in the hilly and forest regions of this north, east and central India. Listen, and they cut the trees and burned the remains and the ashes mixed with the soil and did the cultivation. Another group of the tribals, they earned their livelihood. How? They did the hunting as well as they gathered the foods. Listen, please see the picture of these hunters and gatherers. They hunted the animals as well as they gathered the food grains and then they earned the livelihood. Then in many regions, these tribal group, they lived by hunting animals and gathering the forest products. And these forests were essential for the survival of the people. Whatever the things they needed, they collected from the forest. Example, in Orissa, the Khonds communities, then they earned their livelihood by collecting the forest products as well as they hunted the animals. Then when they were going for hunting, they went together and hunted the animals and then they shared the meat, okay, or they shared the meat among themselves. They collected the roots from the forest, not only the roots, They collected the medicinal plants like herbs and shrubs from the forest, and then even the oil for lighting the lamps and cooking the food. They pressed the seeds of mehua trees and the salt trees and prepared the oil. This oil they used for cooking purpose as well as for lighting the lamps. So whatever they needed, they collected from the forest. Whatever the products they collected from the forest, after their use, then they sold this in the market. Listen, and they bought whatever the grains and crops they needed. And the local weavers as well as the other workers, they turned to the Khonds. Khonds, that was a community living in Orissa. And these weavers and leather workers, they collected the colors from whom? From this Khonds community. Then what type? That is the kusumam and palash. Kusumam and palash flowers that is used for making the color. To color the clothes as well as the leathers, these weavers and leather workers, they collected this kusumam and palash from this Khonds community. Then from where did they get this rice and grains? Listen, for collecting the rice and grains, they exchanged the goods. Barter system, exchanging the goods. The forest products they sold to the market, and from there they collected the grains and then crops. Clear? Then other times they bought the goods with a small amount of earnings. They did some odd jobs and earned some money and used this money for buying the crops and grains. They did the odd jobs in the villages, that is carrying the loads, building roads, like that activities they engaged and earned the money, and this money used for buying the grains and crops. At the same time, other laborers, they labored or they worked in the field of peasants and farmers. And the tribal people, they wandered around in search of job whenever faced the reduction in the forest products. Listen, in all season they didn't get the sufficient forest products. Then at that time, what did they do? They wandered around. For what purpose? In search of job. Clear? Then the example, one of the Baigas community of central India, they were reluctant to work for others. They were not ready to do the work for others. They believed that then they were the forest people. So doing the work for others, that were considered as then certain inferiority complex to them. They believed that it was below the dignity of the Baiga to become a worker or to become a laborer. They believed that they were the forest people. So to do the work for others, that was considered as the dignity, reducing their dignity. So they didn't like to do the work for others. Then the tribal groups, they often needed to buy and sell the goods. This led to depend on traders and money lenders. Listen, they wanted to buy and sell the goods. For buying and selling the goods, they depend on the money lenders as well as the traders. And the traders, they sold the goods at high prices. These traders and money lenders, they exploited the tribals community. Listen, the traders, they sold the goods at high prices, as well as the money lenders, they gave the loans with the high interest that affected the life of the tribal community. For the tribals, the market and commerce, that often meant debt and poverty. Listen, because of this work of these money lenders and traders, these tribals, they face lot of troubles. Listen, then please see the chart. How did they earn their livelihood? They exchanged the goods, they did the odd jobs, they worked for the farmers, as well as they wandered around in search of jobs and depend on the money lenders and traders. When they depend on the money lenders and traders, that affected their life and they became debtors. I hope all of of you understood. The remaining we can take in the next class. But today's class we mainly discussed about the Birsa Munta, then as well as the hunter-gatherers as the jhum cultivators. How did they earn the livelihood and how did they do the cultivation? Clear? I hope all of you understood. If you didn't clear any parts, please contact me. I will help you to clear that. Don't forget to complete the notes. I will send the questions, read the textbook and refer this video class and prepare the notes. Don't forget to send the notes that particular day itself. You have to complete the notes that particular period itself and to send me. Don't forget that. Okay. Thank you.